How we doing? Today is Thursday, the 10th of October, 2024. I'm just doing part two of a video that I did a couple of days ago in regards to seller financing from the seller's perspective. If you go back on my YouTube channel under presentations, and you'll see one that says seller financing for sellers video, part one. This is part two of that particular video. Uh, in part one, we kind of talked about who seller financing benefits or works for best when it comes to someone who is selling the house. We gave two primary reasons on why you will want to consider seller financing on a property that you're selling. And now we're just going to kind of walk through the actual numbers on how they break down. Have a couple of examples that would just show somebody who is thinking about selling, the different options that they have and what their potential profit could be. So, let's get right into that. Okay, so here are the examples. So it says, let's look at a single family home with a sales price of $250,000. So this is basically a seller that is looking to sell their house for $250,000. Now you can change that number to any number. It could be 1.25 million. It could be 2.5 million. It could be 5 million. It could be 80,000. Whatever the number um, you know, that's what it could be. We're just, for this particular example, we're using $250,000. And then the owner needs to sell and advertises the property with owner financing to attract more buyers. Again, if you go back to video one, we explained the benefits of offering seller financing, and one of them is that you attract more buyers. An interested buyer with a down payment of 15% and a credit score of 675 approaches the seller with an offer. They have self-employment income, but the banks want to see at least another year in business before making a loan. So this particular situation with this buyer, which you will be surprised as to how many buyers have situations similar to this. For whatever reason, they cannot get qualified at a bank. Um, a lot of people right now, have different ways of making income, earning income, and couldn't be homeowners, but because of the regulations with the banks and their qualification process, a lot of times they're not able to get qualified. But that doesn't mean that they could not be a good a good prospect to be a homeowner or to buy a house. So, uh, and as we see here, 15% down. A lot of people say, well, who has 15% to put down on a house that maybe in a higher price range? You'd be surprised. Again, the only thing that I could say is that you would want to try and offer seller financing and see what type of people come to you, and you'll find that you'll find people with all different types of credit scores, all different types of down payments and situations. And this is pretty common. This 15% down is actually less than what the national average is. The national average is right around 25% when someone who is looking and is a buyer and is looking for seller financing, an owner or a homeowner to offer seller financing, the average nationwide is 25% that they put down. And then the credit score can range. You can find things obviously in the 500s, and you have people with 700 or more credit scores. It just depends on their situation on why they can't get qualified. So again, for this is the example that we're using. And this is really to show people how much they can make by seller financing the house. And in this first scenario here, that 15% of $250,000 is 37,500. So you're going to be writing or creating a note at $212 and $500 for this particular exercise, we're using 8.5%. A lot of times, I would say the average is probably somewhere between 9.5 to about 11%, just depending on the particular price range. Obviously, the higher the price range, the lower or the less on the lower side you want to have your interest rate, just so we can, try to make the house as affordable as possible. So, but just because you may have $1 million house or $2 million house doesn't mean that you want to have an interest rate of 2 or 3% either. You probably want to be, at a minimum somewhere around this 8.5, and like I said, all the way up to about 11%, just depending on the value of the property, how much you want to sell it for. And then this is the payment here, 1633.94, and it's being amortized over 30 years. So this is the scenario that we've created. And now there are going to be a couple of different ways here to show how a seller could get, what they could get out of the property by doing it this way. So as you can see here, this is if you wanted to create just a payment stream over a long period of time. Again, go back to my first video. It shows reasons why people would want to do this. And in your situation or another situation, another person's situation, they may be willing to wait a longer period of time to collect the money for this particular property. And that's what this first option one here breaks down, is that if you were to collect these payments over the next 30 years, along with your down payment here, as you can see, 37,500, you would have actually sold that $250,000 property for $625,718. And the reason why we do that, or that we can figure that out here, is because of this right here. This is an amortization schedule. And so, I've kept the same terms. And basically, when you take this payment here, and this is just your principal and interest, this doesn't include taxes and insurance, because that doesn't come to the person creating the seller financing, just the principal and the interest. So if you took this payment and multiplied it over 360 payments, 360 payments, so that's your 588, $218.40 plus the 37,500, and that's how you get that number. So, I mean, you would have sold the home for almost, 3 times as much as you originally wanted to, that you were going to sell it for originally. And again, this may be more of a situation for a person that can wait over time. Maybe this is a particular property you just want to keep in the family, so to speak, or in your estate. And let's just say within the next 30 years, something happens to you, you pass away, you can always have this a part of your estate, and then it can go to your heirs, your spouse, something like that, that can still collect these payments over time. So, that's, one scenario to look at it. If you're okay with just collecting these payments over time, you would have sold the house for well over double your initial price. The offset of that is that you are collecting it over time. But a lot of times a person would like to add a $1,600 payment to their monthly income. You could be somebody that's older, headed towards retirement, want to get, some form of cash flow or money coming in. And this is one way to do that, is to, sell or finance a property. So this second scenario here is money now and money later. So what you can do when you create seller financing and you create these payments over 30 years, you don't have to, you have the options of selling a certain portion of these particular payments. This within the real estate notes industry is called a partial. So as you can see here, the transaction closes and the seller collects the first payment, the first monthly payment. The seller would prefer a lump sum of cash today plus future payments. So this may be a scenario for yourself. Maybe you have a property and you want to be able to get a lump sum of cash now, and then, reserve to collect those payments later. Maybe, uh, again, we'll use a scenario, somebody that's going to retire maybe in 10 or 15 years, something like that. So they take a lump sum now, knowing that in 15 years, according to this scenario that we have here, you could start to receive that monthly payment of $1,633.94 once again. So, for a payment for the next 180 payments, you could expect to collect $136,142. And somebody says, well, how do you come up with that number? Okay. What we do here is, if we were to, most investors that, want to buy these payment streams like this are looking for a 10% a rate of return. They want to try and get, that 10, 11, 12, or even higher if they can, but kind of a baseline in the industry is about 10%. And so what would they pay for the next 180 payments? How much would they pay for that? And that's when it would come out to that, the 186,000, excuse me, $136,142 they would pay to collect those next 180 payments. Because if you take that, and if you take the 1633.94 times the next 180 payments, that's $294,000, especially at, that they would have collected over that particular time. So who wouldn't want to do that? That's why they would pay that amount for that. So that would go directly to you. So now you have your lump sum of cash that you are looking for. You could get that right now, and plus be owed still a balance of $165,926 for a total now of $339,568. So that's what you would have collected over the time, over that period of time. You would have collected that much money when you sell half of the payments up front, and then you keep the back half of the payments. So again, you're selling it for considerably more than the $250,000. And then finally, you have the full cash out here. This meaning that you create this note and you collect the one payment, but then you just want to get totally cashed out. You don't want money now and money later. So in that scenario here, you'll see here that for the next 350 payments, someone would pay you $186,106, and you've already collected that $37,500 for a total of $223,606. And so a lot of times what you want to do in this scenario is, if I was going to sell my house at $250,000 minus all the expenses or fees that go along with selling it through a realtor, your commissions, if you have to do seller's concessions, if you have to, pay attorneys, if you have to do any repairs on a property, you want to take that number and see how close it is to this 223,606. Is it worth me taking $223,606 as opposed to maybe 230,000, 235,000, after all of those expenses, but I may have to wait 6 months. I may have to wait a year. I may have to put money out right now to fix something on the property. So because usually when you're selling a property, or any type of closing costs that a seller has could be anywhere from about 5 to 10%. So if you just look at 10% of $250,000, what is that, 25,000? So you're looking at, $225,000 that you will walk away with. So we're right at that, minus, maybe about 1,500 or so dollars or whatever. So it's very close to that number, and this can get done a lot more quicker. You don't have to wait for somebody to go through the qualification process and do any repairs on the property, like we said. And, usually a transaction, a typical transaction could take anywhere from, 30, 45 days or longer on a traditional sale. So, like I said, I wanted to make this video as part two to kind of show people, the how the money would work on this and why you would want to consider seller financing, because you're going to make most likely more money if you take one of the first two scenarios, or you can make something close to what you would walk away with on a third scenario, on a full cash out. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily, know this and look at this and understand it this way. And they always think that if I do this, am I gonna get the equity out of the property? And as you can see here, you can. And it may be even, a lot of times I feel it's better for someone to, try to collect this over time, because you're actually making more, you're making money on your equity. A lot of times people take money out of their property or sell their property. They don't necessarily have an investment that's going to get 8.5% or more return on it, or whatever they're going to do with that particular amount of money. It's usually not continuing to work for them, unless they're going to put it in some type of investment that they know that it can get a solid return. But a lot of times people don't do that. But and you may not need $250,000 worth of cash right now. That was, taken, assuming that this house was paid off and you're selling it at $250,000. Maybe you don't need that. Maybe you don't have, two, three, four, five investments that you can spread that money out and put it into. So why not create the note on it, collect those monthly payments, get that interest, that interest income for yourself over time. And then, if you want to, in 5 years from now, if you need a lump sum of money to kind of go do something, pay something off, uh, whatever the case may be, you have something that you can, go and then sell and then get a lump sum of cash. So you're able to get lump sums of cash as well as monthly payments on this. So that's again why I wanted to show people, the potential of what you could make over time. And hopefully, depending on your situation, you at least look at this option. And what we try to do is help people write these things correctly, find the right person to put in the property, make sure that they're qualified. Our job is to, make sure that we're putting the right people in homes that can afford it. So we're not having problems, 6 months, a year down the line. Uh, Life happens to everybody, but we try to, make sure that, people are qualified the right way and, can afford the house and are in good financial shape in order to put them in this particular property. We're just not putting anybody in there. And usually somebody that's putting 15, 20, 25% down, if something does happen to them in their life, a lot of times they're going to, want to communicate with you to try and see if they can, they can rectify the situation, because they would be walking away from 15, 20, 25% or more of equity that they have in this particular property. And usually people don't want to do that. And that's kind of the difference from, doing a rental model as opposed to a seller financing model on a home. Somebody, that may pay $3, $4, $5,000 for a deposit, more likely to walk away than somebody that's put down 37,500. And like the example that we gave right there, those three scenarios. So, again, if anybody has any questions that watches the video, you can reach out to me. My telephone number is 973-475-8488. You can send me a text message, reach out to me, or you can email me at investorgmr@yahoo.com. But I hope this sparks people's interest that, maybe thinking about selling. Maybe you have a real estate agent right now. Even if you have one right now, this strategy can still be implemented. Your agent may not know, this particular strategy, but we can assist them and help them with that and getting through this particular process. And like I said, finding the right person and making sure that we can get you what you're looking for the property. So if you have a property out there, sitting on the market or not selling for whatever particular reason or whatever your reason is, and you want to consider this, definitely reach out to us and we can have a conversation and see how we can help. All right. Thank you, and everybody have a good night.